Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. In the United States alone, over 6.7 million people are living with Alzheimer's disease, a number that's projected to more than double by 2050. All of us are in urgent need of prioritizing our brain health. We shouldn't just wait for later years. Healthy brain habits should be fostered through our entire lives, given there's no cure for Alzheimer's disease, which make prioritizing our brain health even more important. Our brains are remarkable organs, constantly adapting and rewiring themselves in response to our experiences and behaviors, from dietary choices to sleep patterns, from physical exercise to mental stimulation. Every aspect of our lifestyles play a role in shaping our brain health. So by proactively adopting habits that supports our brain health, we can strengthen our brain's ability to withstand damage and maintain function. That's why we're so glad to chat on IG Live today with Dr. Emily Fine, clinical psychologist. During this live, we're going to discuss nutrition for a healthy brain, practical tips to potentially prevent cognitive decline, and why you should avoid plastic to maintain your brain health, and so much more. I'm going to. Hello, hi, Dr. Fine.
Hi, Dr. Hua. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Alzheimer's disease is on the rise, and then there's like no cure, which I was like, okay, it's making our exercising our brain and adapting habits like super important. But before we start, like, tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you became a clinical psychologist.
Sure. So I'm a clinical psychologist and a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice. So I've been almost exclusively in private practice for the last 4 years. But prior to that time, I worked in a variety of different settings, from neurorehabilitation to the VA healthcare system, skilled nursing facilities, home and community. So a lot of different settings. Um, in terms of my path to becoming a clinical neuropsychologist, it really started, I would say, my senior year of high school when I took AP psychology. So it started quite a while ago, but it's been a long journey. Um, in terms of my interest, though, in integrative neuropsychology, that's actually been much more recent. So that sort of stemmed from, kind of further exploration actually of some of my own medical issues. So I have several immune disorders, and I noticed that I was actually starting to be more having more physical reactions to medications, to things in my environment. And so I asked my immunologist, why is this happening? Um, and she said, I don't know for sure, but I know that a lot of my patients with mast cell activation syndrome experience this. And she had just started learning more about tilt, or toxin induced loss of tolerance. So when people become more reactive to chemicals and toxins in their environment. And so I started to read more about that as it relates to my own medical conditions. And in that process, started learning that these toxins are actually associated with our mental and cognitive health as well. And I, in my training, in my 7 years of PhD training, 2 years of postdoctoral fellowship, there was really very little discussion of toxins or other lifestyle factors, things like exercise and nutrition and sleep and things of that nature that actually we can focus on in terms of prevention of some of these diseases. Really, conventional neuropsychology tends to focus more on assessment and diagnosis and recommendations once individuals have these diseases.
So aligned. So we talk a lot about detox, the toxins, but then we also realize that in order to support your body to live a toxic free, like low tox life, you need your brain function, you need your gut function, you need your overall health because they're all like super connected. So thank you for landing on that. That's amazing.
Ah, absolutely.
Throughout your experience, do you find that we do enough things on a daily basis to help support our cognitive health, or do you think, the average person has some room for improvement?
I definitely think the average person has room for improvement, and I really don't think it's most people's fault. I I think that the conventional medical system is really not set up for people to learn about lifestyle factors, environmental factors that impact our brain health. And I don't think that the healthcare system is set up to allow providers time to educate the patients about these things.
Now, lifestyle is many factors. You also just mentioned. Let's start with the nutrition and brain health. Like many of us think nutrition is just as a way to support healthy weight. So, what role does it play in brain health?
Yeah, nutrition plays a significant role in terms of our cognitive functioning. So there's a lot of research on different foods, food groups, and their role in terms of preventing cognitive decline, and also some research on foods that can actually help to or associated with improvements in cognitive functioning. So some examples would be fish. Um, Extra virgin olive oil, blueberries, fruits and vegetables in general, uh, anthocyanin rich foods. Those have all been shown to be associated with uh, uh, in some cases they can help to prevent cognitive decline, and in some cases they're associated with improvements as well.
You had a great post pointing that ultra processed food can increase the risk of stroke. Why is that?
Yeah, so there's a research study that looked at comparisons of ultra processed foods, minimally processed foods, and unprocessed foods, and how much people were consuming, and their associations with risk of stroke and cognitive decline. And they found that individuals who were consuming more ultra processed foods were at increased risk of stroke, and individuals who were consuming more minimally processed foods or unprocessed foods actually had a reduced risk of having a stroke. Um, in terms of kind of the association or why that might be, um, we don't really have the research yet to kind of understand that mechanism. But I would hypothesize that there are, a variety of different factors that could be at play. For example, we know that ultra-processed food is associated with increased inflammatory markers. Inflammation isn't good for the brain. Um, Probably if individuals are eating more ultra-processed food, they're not eating as much of these minimally processed or whole foods, which tend to have more cognitive benefits. Um, Also, too, I think in terms of, what we're packaging our food in. So if we think about whole foods, they tend to be unpackaged or don't have as much packaging. A lot of the packaging that we use for ultra processed foods can be higher in toxins as well. So those are just
Um,
a few ideas, but
is there a difference between ultra processed versus like processed food?
yeah. So ultra processed food, or really just processed food, compared to unprocessed food. So when we think about things like soft drinks, candy, a lot of fast food. Those are some examples of more ultra processed foods. Those foods tend to be higher in sugar and fats and cholesterol. Uh, Also, they tend to have a lot of artificial ingredients that are added to them, which contribute to them being more highly processed. Uh, but foods that are more minimally processed uh, tend not to have as many of those, additives. They might have some preservatives. So, for example, things like canned fruits and vegetables, nuts, cheese, those are kind of more minimally processed foods.
If you have all the time in the world and every ingredients you need to make your favorite meal that, supports brain health, what would you make?
Well, I will say that I am not much of a cook. So my husband does most of the cooking in our household, but he tends to he will cook pretty much whatever I want. So it's which is nice. But something that I eat often, I try to eat salmon multiple times a week with lots of, extra virgin olive oil. Um, I eat a lot of blueberries. I probably eat about $10 worth of blueberries per day. So I have like pretty pretty expensive blueberry habit, but I would eat several servings of fruits and vegetables, especially ones that are, rich in anthocyanins. Um, I would say maybe, some black beans. Um, those are all some things that can really be supportive of brain health.
They all sound super delicious too.
Yeah,
And especially somebody else is cooking for
it,
you.
exactly. It's definitely nice. Yeah.
Now let's talk about sleep, because I know sleep is also really important for brain health. So how and why do our sleep patterns change as we age?
So there are a few main things that tend to change as we age with our sleep. So we tend to have decreased slow wave sleep. So slow wave sleep is what we think of as our deep sleep. It's also the time of sleep when our lymphatic system tends to be uh, most effective or most at work. So that's one thing that tends to change. Um, Also, our sleep tends to become more fragmented as we age, so we tend to wake up more. Um, Also, our sleep efficacy, so our beliefs about our ability to be able to sleep tend to be more negative, which may be a result of those increased difficulties with sleep. Um, so those are some things that tend to change as we sleep. Um, in terms of why those things happen, one thing we do know is that individuals who are healthier, even as they age, tend to have fewer of those changes or to less of a degree. So things like physical and mental health issues, stress, nutrition, exercise, all of those things impact our sleep. Those tend to change less in individuals who are healthier. Um, but in terms of, potential reasons why those things change, so one thing is our circadian rhythm tends to become less effective as we age. So our circadian rhythm is important for cueing our body as to, when we sleep and when we're awake. Um, and light, sunlight, darkness are really our major cues as to when our body is supposed to be awake and when it's supposed to be asleep. Um, and then also too, in terms of our vision. So our vision tends to decline as we age, and so therefore our brain's ability, our visual ability to perceive light and darkness tends to be decreased. Um, Sleep disorders are more likely to occur as we age. So things like sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, periodic limb movements, those kinds of things. So
So how does sleep like aid in flushing the brain out?
Um, so in terms of being able to kind of flush out toxins from our brain, when we're in slow wave sleep, our lymphatic system helps to kind of flush out some of those toxins or that waste. So our interstitial space in our brain tends to enlarge during that time, which allows more space for those toxins to flush out.
Besides It's sleep and nutrition. I also have other questions regarding some other factors and brain. So, like, why does diabetes prevention coincides with supporting cognitive health?
So we know that individuals who have type 2 diabetes are at increased risk of developing dementia. So those dysregulated blood sugars can contribute to neuroinflammation, which then are associated with that 1.5 to 2.5 times increased risk of developing dementia. So it's important to try to prevent type 2 diabetes. And if you have it, to try to regulate your blood sugar.
How about exercise? How can exercise benefit a healthy brain?
So, exercise is associated with a lot of different changes or benefits for the brain. So, one, it helps to improve cognitive functioning, it helps to improve blood flow to the brain. Um, it helps to prevent atrophy or reduce atrophy. It can help with connections between neurons and growth. So definitely beneficial for the brain. And we know too from research that it's important to, start exercising early and to continue with exercise because once you stop exercising, those benefits tend to decrease or go away.
People always wonder how much exercise they should be doing, and in terms of steps, like how many steps per day should we be like thinking about to in order to lower the risk of cognitive decline?
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's really great this study that was conducted because it helps to give people, you know, detailed information as to what they need to be doing in order to reduce their risk. But in the study, they found that 9,800 steps per day was associated with a 50% reduction in risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So I mean, that's huge to be able to say, hey, I'm going to walk this number of steps and this is going to reduce my risk by 50%. And 9,800 steps is approximately 5 miles. So um, and I think something else that's really helpful is that, it's not necessarily all or nothing. So they also found that if you walked 3,800 steps per day, that reduced your risk of dementia by 25%. So that's about 2 miles per day. Um, so I think it's really great that we have those specific details to be able to implement.
I wasn't sure if it's the same study, but just like a couple years ago, I also saw a similar study where saying that weekend warriors is also fine. So basically any movement is better than no movement. And if you actually don't have time to exercise during the week, even if you just move on the weekend, that still have a ton of benefits.
Right, right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that really speaks to it not being all or nothing and that, if we, try to do some exercise, that we can benefit. And I would assume too that, if you're not able to walk to get those steps in, um, then, I'm assuming that there are probably, other types of exercise you could do that would correlate with those reduced risks as well.
One of our like pretty much our number one tips for people to live a low tox life is to reduce plastics. So you had some really amazing help posts about plastics and brain health. So what's the connection between the two?
Thank you. Yeah, so there was a really interesting study that looked at the human brain in autopsies, and they found that there was evidence of plastic actually in the human brain. It was a really small study, and we don't know necessarily that those results correlate with neurodegenerative diseases, but just the fact that they could, find plastic in the human brain, it seems pretty significant in itself. Uh, so, and we also know too from other research. finding plastic in the carotid artery is associated with increased risk of stroke. They even looked at individuals who had plaque in the carotid artery, and those who had plaque plus plastic were at increased risk beyond that. So that's pretty powerful.
I
Uh,
remember reading that study. I think it's the one with plastic and plaques. It's almost like 4 times or more, have higher chance, like 4 times or more likely to die from a major cardiac event than those who without, which is like, wow, it's pretty scary.
it is, yeah, it is very scary. So.
Now let's like be a little more optimistic. What are some tips that you'd like to recommend for reducing plastic use?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the good news is that, there are easy ways that we can reduce our use of plastic. So, one place to start, for example, would be the kitchen. So, instead of using plastic, I recommend using glass or stainless steel. Um, and if you have to use plastic, make sure you don't heat it up because that, increases the risk. Uh, in terms of products that we use on a daily basis, bath and beauty products, personal care products, switching those out for lower tox options. There are a lot of really good brands and, and really good products to be able to make those changes. Um, and then, in terms of not, the things that we can exchange, obviously we can't eliminate plastic from our life, but trying to mitigate some of those effects as well. So, using air purifiers, opening your windows on low pollen and good air quality days, uh, filtering your water, things of that nature to try to, mitigate some of those risks.
So, how can someone work with you? Because I could see when people go through or have similar experiences, they would want to work someone like you who know what's going on and then also understand other people's experiences. So, how does that work?
Sure. So they can, go to my Instagram page, Integrative Neuropsychologist. They can go to my website, dremilifine.com. So I do conduct evaluations for purposes of diagnosis and treatment, but I also offer preventative brain health consultations and follow-up sessions. So I help you to kind of take a look at your daily life and look at your risk factors for cognitive decline. So, pretty much the things that we've talked about: exercise, nutrition, toxins, sleep, and helping you to make some changes to reduce your risk um, of developing neurodegenerative diseases. I also offer, consultations if you are pregnant or planning on becoming pregnant because good brain health starts before your baby is born. So exposures, in utero can impact, whether your child develops neurodevelopmental disorders, a whole variety of potential issues. So.
Amazing. I love this preventative approach. That means anyone can come and see you and then get tips and then get consultation, not just like when you're already feeling that you have or by being diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease or other conditions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The preventative piece is huge. And and that was the whole reason why I started my Instagram page because I started to learn more and I felt like if this is something that I didn't know throughout my training, how are other people going to know this? And so I wanted to make it available to other people.
Anything else you'd like to promote?
No, I mean, I'm not an affiliate with, any particular products or anything like that. We try to use low tox products in our household. So we use a variety of different products. Uh, I've been able to kind of convert my husband to the low tox lifestyle. So he yeah, he was using force of nature to clean the other day, and he said, It's like, I use force of nature on everything now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really converted.
That is amazing. We'd love to. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing everything, and I think we'd love to invite you back to talk more about pre-pregnancy preparation for brain health because I think we have a lot of audience who are in that stage, and we often talk about people spend a lot of time preparing for their wedding, but they actually don't spend a lot of time and energy preparing for that pregnancy, and the brain health is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I would love to come back and chat more about that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you. You too.